can fix it in post.
Fix everything in post.
Nick Wheeler fixes everything in post. You ready to go?
There we go.
Episode 13, Jeff.
Oh, is this unlucky 13?
13 with
Yes.
Jeff?
13 total.
Wow.
Look who we've got, though. I mean, you know, on Unlucky 13, we bring Rob into the mix.
That's appropriate, actually.
Wow.
I'm honored.
What's going on, Rob?
Oh, not much, man. It's good to be here. Jeff's been asking about this for a while, so we finally made it happen.
Yeah, we've
Here
tried to put you off for as many weeks as we could. 13, I think, exactly. But at least we got you now.
I'm here.
Jeff, you want to intro our guest today and give a little background?
Mr. Rob Gerami, sound engineer, guitar player extraordinaire, does all the noodly goodness.
That's right. That's what you call it.
That's what I always say. Always the noodly goodness. That's what he's doing on guitar.
Noodly goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guitar player for Route 88.
Yep.
And maybe Shadow Life if we get another gig. Who knows?
That's true.
Now that's your phone.
Is that mine? I had mine turned off.
Well, blamed it on me, and it wasn't me after all.
Well, you know, the phones just, as long as the phones are ringing, we're getting work. That's the way I look at it. Right, Rob?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we got something going. Either that or they want to sell me a extended car warranty. One or the other. I can't quite figure out what it is.
For some reason, I still have student loans. That I
do you?
Oh, yeah.
I do too. Yeah.
They're trying to help me pay off my student loans that I don't have.
Me too. That's amazing.
We'll see.
It's amazing. Maybe we do a whole show on those calls someday.
Telemarketers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But today we're going to chat about some fun stuff. We're going to talk all kinds of stuff that Rob is an expert in. And we brought in our subject matter expert today because Jeff and I don't really have a clue.
No, we just act like we do, and it can be very dangerous when he hands
I'll do my best.
I just the iPad and says, "Here, go run sound."
It's free advice, so
there we go.
Keep that in mind.
I always look out at the sound guy and say, "I need more 4K," and they just look at me like, "Yeah, you're an idiot." So that's about as far as I know. No,
yeah.
You know, we're wearing our ears today. Everybody's got their in-ears in. We know what those are, but we're going to talk about music, and we're going to talk about anything that comes up. And Rob, it's good to have you with us, man. I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here. Yeah, it's first time you and I have had a chance to talk for a while. Usually we kind of pass each other at gigs because
you're always running around with that iPad.
We're working and getting ready, and it's kind of like, hey, what's up? How you doing?
Exactly.
Then we go to our respective corners and don't see each other again.
But I've seen you do sound for a lot of great bands, and I know you went on the road. You think let's get some background for everybody that doesn't know you. Yeah.
I did. Well, I've been, I hate to admit it, but probably been in this business since 80. Remember the 80s, Jeff?
Vaguely.
No, I probably started doing, I did repair work and around 85, 86. And did speaker repair, pro sound stuff, some recording. Played in bands, you know, the whole thing, just to avoid having a real job and going to school. So,
yeah. Now, were you in the area here all this time? You were in the Dayton area?
Yeah, I was in the Dayton area. So kind of built up a following with a lot of the bands and stuff over time. Played in a zillion bands, worked with a zillion bands. That's pretty much the backstory.
Well, I want to talk about speaker repair for a minute, and I know that's a great topic for all our viewers. They probably are like, really, but speaker repair, speaker repair used to be, and I used to own and manage several nightclubs, and we had big PAs. I mean, we had big scoop bass bins hanging. You know, it was the disco era and all that stuff.
Sure.
And we did a lot of diaphragm repairing, and I guess if you want to call it that or whatever that's called.
Yep.
All I knew is I had to call a guy named Dale Shade, and he'd come out and send it out to somebody for me. I don't know if you ever knew him, but he.
I remember the name. Yeah.
He would take them down, and he would do his thing, and we'd get them reconed and back, and they'd sound good again for a while. And we had little piezo tweeters and things hanging to get the disco stuff going on and all that. But it was really interesting, and you don't hear that as much. Is it as prevalent today? Are they better made, or? Really,
the biggest difference is that in live sound, you still hear about it. It's a lot more inexpensive to repair blown drivers. I kind of tell people it's like when you get a flat tire, you just change the tire. You don't replace the wheel too. Similar kind of a thing. So, but in live sound, yeah, there's still a lot of work there. Now, the difference on the other side of things is that people aren't listening to home stereos like they used to. You know, I mean, you think about a lot of the kids out there that have a Bluetooth little bubble or ears,
it's
or
all right
their
here.
phone. I mean, who's got a set of old Serwin Vegas anymore, except for old guys like us? You know,
I do in my closet right here behind me, with
go.
the big silver cone in the top.
Yep, and I've reconed, so I still see some of that business from time to time. But mostly what I do now is the pro audio, musical instrument speakers, and that type of thing. And you know, I'm grateful for the work because I don't know anything else. It's a little late at this stage to find a career.
Well, you know, you're a musician as well, and besides all that, but that was just seemed to be a real prevalent business way back when there were so many dance clubs and everybody had their own PA, and now all the bands have their own PA. So I guess I just don't see it as much because they're probably getting their own stuff repaired.
Yeah,
but it's interesting. And Jeff, you look like you're ready to go to sleep over there. So
I had a late night. We didn't.
Did you have a rough trip?
It was late. Yeah, we didn't get in last night until probably 12:30 into Cincinnati, and then still had to drive home from there. Well, we had to wait. Here's a kicker. We get off the plane. We go all the way to baggage check. We get our bags. We get ready to walk out the door. And the wife goes to pull her phone out and says, "Uh-oh, I can't find my phone." And luckily we had trackers on them, and I pulled it up, and it's sitting at the last gate because that's where we landed, last gate, and it's sitting on the plane at 12:30 at night, and everybody's already gone home, and people are leaving, and so then we have to wait forever. Luckily, we found someone, and they were able to call, and they were like, "Okay, well, hopefully they can get back on the plane," because that flight is the one that takes off first thing in the morning at 6 a.m.
Right.
But originally, we were supposed to come back on Monday. I don't even know what day is today. What is?
I think we said Monday.
Yeah, we were supposed to come back Monday, but we didn't get on our flight on Friday. That was a whole debacle in itself. Ended up staying in Cincinnati, catching the next flight the next morning at 6 a.m., and then just pushed everything back one day. But then we didn't get in last night until after midnight. Didn't get home till 2. And then I was up this morning, 7:30.
You look tired today. You do.
But
that was vacation though.
It was beautiful. You
have a tan.
It was cool. It was so cold the first couple of days. I think it was 73 and windy.
Oh, how cold! That's just terrible.
Yeah, wow, right. Oh boy.
But yesterday it got up to like 82, 83. So.
I think I actually have a sound effect for that. Yes. That's too bad it was 73 where you were.
But I would take that all, I'll take 73 and windy and chilly, chilly for there, but still nothing compared to what we left up here. I think it was 14 when we got on the plane. So can't beat that. But yeah, I'm just dragging a little bit, trying to get juiced up. I've got too much blood in my caffeine. So I'm trying to load it up some more.
Well, we'll just let Rob talk today. How's that?
He can just talk.
Rob, tell me though, this business of running sound and all that, we spend so much time talking about COVID. We all know that has really put a dent in everybody's work, and big bands, especially that use PAs and sound engineers and all that. It's taken a big cut on them. But you've been doing this a lot of years, and you've traveled, like you said, on the road with some bands and things. Does that get as monotonous as it may seem to be out there? And no matter where it is, it's just a different venue and a different load in and a different tear down and all that and load out. Does it get a little monotonous on the road?
Yeah, all of the cliches are probably true. You forget where you're at.
Right.
Yeah, all that stuff comes into play. And it's definitely a young man's game. When you get to be older, you kind of lose interest in being away from home and family and all that kind of thing. I mean, that was it for me. I had 2 kids, and I knew if I stayed on the road, they wouldn't know who I was. you know.
Right. The rock star status thing only lasts for a little bit.
Yeah. And I wasn't even a rock star. I was just, you know, doing production and, you know, tuning guitars and running monitors and doing sound and that kind of thing. So, I mean, it's great. It's a good experience. It's a lot of fun, but it's got a shelf life like anything else. And eventually you kind of, you know, unless you're one of those people that's what you want to do for the rest of your life, you know, it just wasn't really for me. But I found a niche back home doing stuff with local bands and that type of thing.
And God love those guys that do it for the rest of their lives. But man, when I know some of them, and you do too, and you look at them and you're like, you can tell you've done that your whole life, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They're leaning on the board in front of house, and they're just like, oh, this is another show. You know, I got another guitar player telling me he can't hear himself in the monitor or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
it's interesting.
And you build up a million stories too. And that's another fun part of it. You know, there's always something.
Your job makes or breaks the whole thing. Production is, and it's the most underrated thing in music, is when you're doing big shows, production makes or breaks it. And if you're having sound difficulties or whatever, the artist is not comfortable. And when you're talking big shows, and I don't want to call them divas, but you know how they get. I mean, you get the guys that are so used to everything being perfect, and they want a 15-second sound check and they're done, and those kind of things. That gets to be a little tough, and on the sound guy to perform and make it right every time. And you have problems. It's electronic equipment, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that's what you get paid for more than anything, is to make it look like there's no problem,
right,
to the audience. You know, they paid their money to watch a show, and they don't care that, you know, half of your subs went out on one side of the stage, and, you know, the lights aren't working right. None of that matters to them. You know, bring on the show.
And the redundancy you have to bring with you too, I think, is amazing. That you know, sometimes half the stuff doesn't leave the truck because it's backup, and people don't see that either. And that's loaded in and loaded out, and you know, and I've done production with some people that didn't have backups, and boy, did they pay for it. I mean, I had a whole guy lose a whole side one time, and the whole amp rack fried, and you know, here's 8 Crown amps in a rack, and none of them working, and something happened, and he couldn't figure it out. So
and unfortunately, that is part of the business when you're out on the road. So I kind of took that work ethic back home to the local scene, and I'm sure some people probably thought I was insane for overkill, you know. But yeah, when you're out doing a show like that, you don't have time for things to go wrong. He can tell you how many times I've said, you know, this has to be right, man.
Oh, I know.
You know, we can't go on stage thinking it's going to be okay, because that's not always the case. And I don't know, it's just I don't like to be in a situation where something doesn't work and you don't have a way out.
So, yeah, and that's one thing that, you know, we've talked about multiple times is the redundancy. You know, even not just sound, but just with your equipment in general, you know, having an extra cable, having another backup if a pedal goes out or a mic goes out, or, you know, cables, just little things even on stage that as you're performing, you know, like, something just happened. Click, click, click. Okay, done. On with the show. Because like you said, audience doesn't care. They just want a show.
I mean, it's all information that all our music buddies already know about, so bear with us.
Right.
All you guys. But
well, I think there's a bunch of people that watch this little creation that Jeff and I have done together. And I think there's some people that watch it that are new musicians. And I hope today, at least we can take a little bit of time for you to give some advice from the sound engineer perspective to what you need from a band when you get hired to come in. Maybe it's a new band, you know, you're not used to working with them, because once you get to working with, you know, when you set up Shadow Life, you've got it down. You've got that, you know, in the mix already. You've got it already there. You just load it and you go with it and tweak it. But what about a new band? What kind of advice would you throw at a new band for being ready to play a bigger show? Let's say they've played with a stick PA and they've never played with a sound engineer, and this is their first time. What would you tell them?
Probably the biggest little bit of advice would be, if I or the sound guy ask you to do something, don't complain, just do it. You know, I mean, that's kind of what you're paying us for. You'd be amazed how many bands come in and, you know, they practice at home in the bedroom. They've got an amp that sounds great in the bedroom, and then they bring it to the show and they turn that same amp on, and the settings are all the same, and it's completely unusable in a live situation, and they can't understand why. And I've been through that myself too, playing guitar, and same for him. And me and him have had many discussions on, you know, hey man, try this. This will help you out.
Right.
So
you guys went away from stage amps, didn't you? Like in Route 88 and all that?
Yeah, we go back and forth depending on the venue. But I mean, it's always nice to have amps when you can use them. But it's harder and harder to find venues, you know, especially with the COVID situation. You know, people are out early watching bands, and they don't want to, it's not full rock show volume. You know, it's more of a happy hour type of a situation.
Right.
So that's kind of why we did that, really. It was just to keep the volume down. People want to talk.
That's one thing that we just had a compliment the other night. We played a show and we went in. We just actually ended up only using, you know, one PA speaker. We have Rob, see, this is part of his other speaker business. He builds cabinets and custom stuff. So he built these nice little custom baby monitors for us to use on stage. So then we don't even have to bring our ears or anything like that. It's just real small, sits in front of us, but it doesn't create a lot of stage volume. Mm-hmm. And we actually got a lot of compliments that night about the volume being just right. So they could enjoy the music and listen to the music, but if they still wanted to have conversation, they didn't have to yell at each other. So they could hear the music clear enough that they could enjoy it, but then they could also have conversation. And that's kind of the big thing that we've talked about, especially when we started doing the Route 88 thing, was to be able to go into these small venues, even, you know, with a bigger group. That's why sometimes we will use electronic drums. So we can go in and have that full band sound, but you can have that volume that's quiet so people are comfortable and they can still have the music experience. So that's...
Yeah, and that seems to be critical today in the world of what we're dealing with, and the clubs that are having live music. They're not as big. They're not the big venues with a huge stage and a 1,000 capacity and all that. Like we used to play in years ago.
Yep, exactly. Yeah,
you know, it just seems now that we've narrowed it down, and then you step into something like a patio at Heather's, and that requires a whole different sound approach. And I got your rule number 1: listen to the sound engineer. All right, so rule number 2. Is there a rule with, you know, sound check and being prepared when you say it's time? And I see a lot of that where the band's waiting on one guy or something. And, you know, obviously the drummer always gets there first and sets up because he's got the longest setup time. But it just seems to me like that is being prompt and punctual and making sure you meet the sound check needs. You know, it's in the contracts for every big band. When, you know, they're going to go on at 2 o'clock for a sound check, you better be ready at 2 o'clock for a sound check.
Exactly. Yeah. I think what it comes down to is, you know, when you're supposed to be at a certain venue at a certain time, the owners are going to remember that. So if you're on time and you do what you're asked to do and you're ready to play when it's time to play, you'll get invited back. And a lot of bands, you know, kind of work. I mean, we're musicians, so we don't have a real schedule in our clock in our head anyway. You know, it's
called musician time.
It's willy-nilly. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've been guilty of it too. So, I mean, everybody has, but the bands that seem to continually do well around this town or anywhere are the ones that, they show up on time. They do what they're asked to do. They're not too loud. You know, they play a variety that people want to keep coming out and watching them, you know. I mean, there's something to be said for playing your thing and having your own influences and all that kind of stuff. And that's fine. But if you want to keep working, especially in this town, it's a fine line between pleasing yourself and pleasing what the 15 girls at the table want to hear.
The woo crowd. Yeah.
The woo girls.
The woo girl.
Yeah.
Where's the sound? Where is it?
Where's the woo? Hold on. I got a woo girl sound. You ready? Yes. Usually they're not yelling that at the band, though. That's usually just what's going on in the room.
Pretty much, yeah.
You know, I appreciate what you're telling us, and so many times I want to encourage bands when you get a bigger gig and you're playing a bigger place. you know, so many guys have invested in the new X Airs and things like that, where they run things from the stage. They can run their in-ear monitors and all that from devices. But you can really screw that up. I'm just going to say that if you're a band and you're on the stage and you've got one of these new fancy dancy X Airs and all that, you know, it's not just a fader and a bass and treble knob on an analog board, man. This is this is something you can mess up. And the big problem when you're on stage is you're not hearing what the audience is hearing. If you don't step out from in front of those little PA cabinets and actually hear what's going on out front, I've heard some great bands sound horrible running sound from the stage. I always encourage them, spend the money, get a sound guy. You'll sound fantastic. You'll get 10 more gigs from it if you sound good. You'll get no gigs from it if you sound bad. So
yeah, that's right. That's right. And I've been on both sides of that, where I've run sound from the stage plenty of times, and sometimes we've had pretty rough nights, you know.
You've got an advantage though. You know what's critical. And,
I mean, my thing is I know how to troubleshoot, and that's probably the biggest difference. A lot of bands that do it themselves don't necessarily have that advantage. You know, something goes wrong, what is it, and how do you fix it fast?
Right.
And again, that's, you know, being on the road all those years, and that's what I got paid for. But yeah, when you do it on your own at your own gig, it's tough. I mean, there are guys that I grew up watching play and run sound from the stage, and, you know, amazing guys, probably a lot of guys that, you know, their names and stuff from back in the day. But it's different now because you've got sometimes a laptop or an iPad or whatever that you're mixing from. It's not physical faders and knobs and a rack of toys over here, you know. So things get lost, you know, just like any computer, you know. Oh, where's that coming at? What's the problem with this thing? And it's the same kind of situation. It doesn't really, you don't have time when you're on stage to navigate through problems.
No, and feedback and things like that are super annoying to an audience. I mean, you know, I mean that when the crowd starts hearing that, you can just see them walking out the door. People just get irritated, especially somebody that can't get it fixed right away.
Yeah,
Jeff, don't you think? I mean, you're on the other side of the fence here. You're not a sound engineer. You've said that numerous times. But one thing that you want when you're up there on stage is obviously the most quality vocals that you can produce for everybody. And, you know, you've got a good voice. Your voice carries in a room, but yet you still want somebody to mix that down. What goes on in your brain when you step up there to do a sound check? You know, what are you looking for as an artist in this sound engineer guy that's standing beside you playing guitar?
The one thing that I've learned even before, you know, Rob started running sound for us is I would always try to be respectful of the sound guy. Hey, what can I do to make your life easier? You want me to get out of your way? I'll get out of your way. And then you let me know what you want me to do. And then the other thing is also my own equipment. I don't like to sing out of somebody else's microphone. I have had a mic go out, which is why we get back to redundancy. I always carry a spare microphone. Whether it's, I typically always use a wireless, but I always carried a wired mic because you never know. I've had wireless mics go out because there's too much interference. So you pull the wired one out and you go. And so that's the one thing. And some sound engineers don't like that. I've always, even before COVID, I've always kind of been a stickler because I don't want to put my mouth where somebody else's mouth has been. But a lot is I just try to keep things simple. If I'm using in-ears, I want to hear, if I'm playing guitar, I want to hear I want to hear my guitar. I want to hear the lead guitar, and I want to hear my vocals, and that's pretty much it. On a rare occasion, I want to hear just a little bit of backup vocals, but most of the time I don't. And so that's also the same if I'm using floor wedges, because I'm basically going to, well, if I'm using an amp, I'm not going to, typically I don't ever put my guitar through my own floor wedge. I just use my amp on stage, and then I just want to hear my vocals. That's pretty much it. Even with using ears, you got a bass player and drums, enough of that bleeds through that you don't need it. So I just try to keep everything in my ears down as low as possible. And because that's one thing that I think that a lot of people don't realize, especially when you're playing out, and this volume that everybody wants this, oh, the stage volume's got to be so loud. Well, when you start getting tinnitus and it never goes away, and then you can't hear anything.
In other words, old age. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just,
you know, but it's just the years and years and years and years of playing. You can't undo that. You can't fix that.
Right.
And so now I wish, you know, somebody would have talked to me about this 10 years ago, 15 years ago, to start wearing hearing protection, which is why I try to always use in-ear monitors.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, I guess, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're looking to have the best quality sound, obviously, all the time. And some nights it works better than others. We know I just did a show last night, just a little trivia show, and I could not get my mic right. And I don't ever change the settings, but it was just like the room, you know, it was full of a bunch of people. It was really weird. And I was just struggling the first half hour to make it sound good and make it sound like I wasn't talking in a fishbowl. And, and it's just, you know, I don't know. I used to run sound years ago on an analog board, you know, an old Yamaha board and those kind of things, but I couldn't begin to start with the X-Airs and those kind of formats to make this work. And I think there's a lot of bands that think it's cool to go out and buy those toys. You know, let's buy a lot of toys. It's like a guy with a big Helix and you know, that kind of thing. You can buy a lot of toys. You can spend a lot of money. But if you don't know how to run them, they can really be detrimental to your show. And I think
absolutely
that's the thing with the new digital platforms is that it just seems to me like it to me, some people really go out and prematurely buy those or don't learn them. It's like, well, we try to do band practice, you know, for 15 minutes or something.
That's one thing. That's one thing I got to say about Rob is when I did invest in getting the X-Air and different things like that, he sat down and kind of gave me a crash course. All right, this is the most important thing you need to know. Go learn that, soak that up, play with it, dig around, and then you know, you can keep going from there. And slowly but surely, I've just been trying to add a little bit more knowledge and a little more knowledge. And the biggest thing, and I've tried to help out, you know, other bands when I've gone in and seen, you know, they're using the X-Air and why is it feeding back and why is it doing this? And the number one thing, and this is what and I bet you could probably back me up on this, is gain staging. Is the most important thing when people turn that gain all the way up on the channel. And it's, you know, plus 25, plus 30. And then they're like, well, why is it feeding back? And I can't turn it down anymore. I can't get it to back down. And it just sounds fully.
How much time do we have on that subject alone?
That's a whole show in itself, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is. Well, and the easiest way that I try and explain it to people, and guitar players will understand this. And once I tell them this, it makes sense. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it now. For those who don't know, when you plug a microphone into a board or whatever mixer you're using, there's usually a knob or some kind of a control that sets the level of the microphone. That's the first part of gain staging, and that's what you were talking about. So it's really just to get that microphone optimal for, you know, your mixer or whatever you happen to be using. The guys that don't know that or don't understand that fact, we'll turn that up or try and get more volume through the PA by using way too much of that input gain. And what ends up happening is it's kind of like a distortion pedal on your guitar amp. The more you turn that up, the more it starts to distort. And before you know it, you've got feedback and you can't figure out why because you can hardly hear yourself. But yeah, think of a guitar amp when you turn a distortion pedal on and you can get all kinds of crazy sounds of feedback and whatnot. And
so where do you start? Where do you start on that? I mean, do you start midpoint?
Well, and that's one of the nice things about all the digital stuff and like the X-Airs and all the mixers now is that, you know, you've got meters that you can actually see, you know, how high you're adjusting. Kind of like when you set levels for your laptop, you've got meters that you look at. You're not really guessing. So visually, that helps a lot. Really, it's just that first gain stage that you don't want to distort it, and you don't want to go into the red and clip that. If you keep that to where, you know, the microphone that you're using is working properly and you're within that range, then everything else that you do on that board is going to be as clean as possible. That's the biggest problem. I think guys that start using these things and they don't know what they're doing, that's what's going on. is they don't have that input gain set properly, because
so much to learn.
It turns into a distortion pedal essentially. Yeah. So yeah, if you're, like I say, if you're a guitar player or whatever, think about back in the day when, we're younger and we're driving around and you're, hot rod, and you got the Kraco stereo cranked all the way up, and it sounds terrible, but it feels gigantic and it seems like it's loud. It's not really that loud. It's just so distorted that it gives you that illusion of bigness, like an electric guitar, but you don't want that in a PA system necessarily. At least if you want,
You've gone, I mean, you've made the transition. You worked years ago. You know what it was in the 80s. We didn't have any of this digital format or any of that kind of stuff. They were big analog boards with a big rack full of outboard equipment and digital delays, and you name it, it was in there, and monitor channels out.
Got a whole garage full of it.
All that stuff that you couldn't give away today as a boat anchor most of the time. But it's gone from that kind of simplistic board, and it really was. I mean, you didn't have a whole lot you could do with it. No. But bring the gain up and down and adjust a little bit, of the EQ to I'm going to throw a picture up here, but it's this. I mean, it's become a control panel, I think. Let me see if I can get that up there. I don't think I can. Maybe not. No, here it is. Let's see if it'll come up. Yeah. So, you're looking at something like that now, which is crazy. It's, this is a computerized control panel. You feel like you're flying the Starship Enterprise when you're using one of these things. And that's a board. And then you consolidate that down into an iPad.
Right.
And you're always like, where's the sound guy? He's the guy running around with the iPad. You know, he's all over the room checking sound and stuff. So it's evolved into even that. And it sure saved a lot of snake cables and things running. Across the floor, but
or, doing parties where the cops show up and now you don't know who's running sound because there's no big board and you're not standing behind it. You just close your iPad and walk away,
Yeah, I always laugh about that. I think of the movie Forrest Gump when he's up there and he's talking and that guy comes up and pulls all the patch cables out and shuts him down.
Exactly.
That was the old days. Now it's this new stuff. And find the guy with the iPad.
But, talking about what you were saying with, having the board and all the outboard equipment, back when I started, you kind of got one piece at a time because it was expensive, I mean, you'd have some money, buy a board, and then you might add a couple of pieces of rack equipment later on. And over time, you build that up. It is simple. And you kind of learn how to use that stuff back, as your money allowed you to buy more stuff. Or now you've got this digital equipment where it's all in there at once. You buy this thing and you've got $10,000 worth of rack equipment right there at your laptop. And
that's cool. I mean, that's
it's very cool, but it's also overwhelming. Like you talk about, it's like you feel like you have to use all this stuff because it's there. And a lot of times you don't. I mean, that was a discussion that Jeff and I had several times. Like, you don't have to have all this stuff turned on. You don't need 6 compressors and, all this extra effect stuff going on if the gig doesn't call for it.
I've still got old noise gates behind me back here. I don't know if you can see.
I see a couple things you got in your rack,
a couple old things back there. And a little 32 band EQ. I use that when I do voiceover work because I can really really mess with it a little more and do some things. But the new digital, I mean, I've got a PreSonus board behind me on one side. I've got this little new patch board we use for our podcast is amazing, and it's got all kinds of built-in effects and such. That's where the sound effects come from. But it also has it has its own gates and compressors, and you can select your vocal quality if you want to sound like Ronnie radio announcer, or you can do those kind of things and put it in there. So it's come a long way. It's really amazing. And I don't know how you do it. I mean, honestly, I've watched you work a lot, and you have, from different bigger bands to smaller venues. And it just seems like you always have the magic to make it happen. And no matter what goes on, you fix it. And, we've done some big events ourselves, our Acoustapalooza event and those, and I've been a part of several at large venues, and trying to do multiple bands. That's where it really gets dicey and fun. And, there's always that person who wants to bring their own mic in. And they, like Jeff said, he doesn't want to sing in anybody's mic. Or, and the thing that drives me the most nuts, and it probably does you too, is acoustic guitars. Acoustic guitars, every one of them seems to be a different sound setup and a different pickup in them and this and that. And I had a kid come in one time and do a battle of the bands, and he wanted to hook up, and he's got a lavalier microphone inside the body of the guitar.
Okay,
run to a plug on the guitar, and that's what he wanted to send me. And I mean, you could turn the gain full, you could go to 11 on everything, and you didn't get a signal at all out of this guitar.
Right.
And he did not want it mic'd. He was like, no, it sounds so great. Maybe in your living room, dude, but it's not sounding so good now,
Yeah.
So much fun.
Acoustics are tough. There's no doubt about it.
So much
many
fun.
Different pickups and so many different ways. I mean, one thing I always talk about with people when they're asking about acoustics and, what should I get? I think you were one of them that asked me, what do I get for a direct box and this and that? And I would say, spend a little bit of money and get a good quality active direct box, which uses, battery or phantom power, because, those types of boxes are designed to see the input level from the acoustic pickup, where like a passive direct box, which you just doesn't need any power, it doesn't handle acoustic signals very well. So it's a little thin. There's not as much low end. You put an active box on that, and you can plug 10 different acoustics into that thing. They're all completely different, and they'll work. And that's the hot tip as far as I'm concerned for the acoustic guitar stuff.
So you're talking about buying gear. I want to know about buying gear. Do you have a go-to? We don't care. We're not doing any endorsements here, but you can mention who you buy through if you do, or like that.
I've got it from everyone. I used to work at a pro sound shop, or 2 different pro sound shops back in the day. So spent a lot of money through that. The regular places like the Sweetwaters and Musician's Friend, and I get a lot of stuff at Parts Express down in Springboro.
You got a little connection there, don't you?
My son works there.
Yeah, I see him in there all the time.
I'm in there hippie in the showroom.
It's 5 minutes from my house, so it's way too close. Way too close.
Yeah,
I picked up an X32 rack mount from there on their big day. They have a tent sale, and I was walking around with Jeff, the owner, and I said, man, I've been looking for one of those. He goes, come to my office, and he looks up the prices. There you go. Yeah. I'm like, okay, sold. And I ended up selling it to another band who uses it for years now and all that stuff, but it was cool. And that's a great little store in Springboro. It's local, and it's taken a big hit because of Amazons and places like that over the years. But it used to be the parts source for everything electronics.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, they were it.
I mean, they were downtown for a while. They had 2 locations at one time. I can't remember. I think the Mendelssohn's building, they were inside that building, and then they moved part of the business, or the warehouse part of it, to Springboro, where it's at now.
Good bunch of people there too.
Yeah.
They'll take good care of you if you go there. Especially if you need a plug or a part.
It's nice to have a local connection to where you can go actually physically touch something and check it out. I mean, the catalog stores are cool, and they have a lot of different things, but you don't. I do like the
Sweetwater warranty is good. Sweetwater's warranty is good.
I love that.
That's a real plus when you can go and they'll match a price that Amazon has, but then they offer you this big warranty on it. It's like hard to refuse when they're doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like you always say, you're going to call your crack dealer at Sweetwater.
I've got a crack dealer at Sweetwater.
Sweetwater. Yeah.
So if anybody needs that, I'll just give you the extension.
If you don't call him, he'll call you.
Yeah, call Nick Church.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Well, that's great. What else you got, Jeff? Man, you've
been silent, man.
I've been silent. No,
I'm going to make some more coffee.
Yeah, we wanted you to come on and talk, not me to come on and talk.
Oh, I have been.
But
I've learned a lot. I do. I love talking to guys that know their craft as well as he does.
One thing we could dabble in, if you want to talk about it, is maybe, and I could throw some of these pictures up on while we're talking about them, is custom guitar cabinets.
Oh, goodness.
I know. Rob's made a few of those.
Yeah, be careful. Yeah.
Let me say, that's out of my league. So here you go.
Well, just making custom cabinets and speaker boxes, and you've reconed speakers. I mean, you've reconed speakers for me. You've built studio monitors. You've built how many? You've built me 3 cabinets. and you turn the combo into a cabinet and a head.
We've done that. Yeah.
Done that. You build me
probably
a 2-cabinet, even with custom Tolex.
Guitar cabinets.
Yeah, guitar cabinets. So, and then the studio monitors, you built a custom set of studio monitors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's just for me.
Just, you know, I have a wood shop and a couple of tools, and I like the smell of cut wood. So
I'll throw some of those pictures up on.
That's mostly it.
And then some of the reconing stuff that you've done for me with guitar speakers and stuff like that. You know, it just, he's like, if you got a question about what's going to sound good with what and what you're trying to get, are you trying to get that low rumble tone? Are you trying to get that, you know, if you're looking for a guitar cabinet with a good low end, you know, he's like, well, if you put this speaker in there, it's going to sound like this if you put it in a closed back or an open back. But if you put this, kind of like with my orange, you made me some custom orange cabinets, and one's an open back and one's a closed back.
Mm-hmm.
One with, I think, a vintage 30, and the other one, is it a blue?
It was a G12H, wasn't it?
Is it a blue? Blue?
I don't remember.
It's been a while now. Yeah, I'd have to go look. But we can throw pictures up on the screen. Talking about it, but does phenomenal work with that too. So if anybody's ever looking for any cabinets,
that's a shameless plug.
It is a little bit, you know, but I can throw it out there. You can check out Speaker Repair Center. So
throw it in there. Throw it in there. The shameless plug.
Wow. I just started doing that back in the day when I was younger, and it was more out of necessity. It was kind of a DIY time back in the early '80s and whatnot when I started doing it. And because stuff was expensive, you know, if you wanted to buy a JBL cabinet or an EV, and I sold all that stuff working in the pro shops, couldn't really afford it, but still wanted to have a PA. So yeah, you go out and you make some boxes and put them together, and you learn, and over time you kind of get a formula and you get it right eventually. That's really how it started. I don't really have any
secrets.
Mystery.
It just looks good and sounds great, and that was the cool thing too, you know, going through, you know, you had so many different speakers, especially when we were building the Gibson, the Gibson Skylark cab head combo. How does this one sound? We'd put it in, we'd take it apart, throw a speaker in there, and that sounds pretty good, but what about this speaker? And then you throw it in there, and that sounds pretty good. What about this speaker?
It's amazing how much a speaker swap makes in the tone of, you know, you can have an amp that sounds wonderful, but it'll sound completely different with 5 different speakers. Just
like we did with the other Gibson amp when we
exactly.
Put the Alnico back in there, which would have been close to the original, and that sounded awful. But you know, you throw in this other one, you get this nice warm sound, and so just, you know, swapping 3 or 4 different things out. Speakers do make a huge difference.
They do, yeah, they really do.
That's about it with that, I guess. I don't know what else we want to talk about. Scott, do you have anything? You still there? You with us?
I'm still here.
There he is.
I'm just learning, man. I'm just
taking it all in.
I am. I'm learning. So one last question I have, and we're about 42 minutes into this thing, so we're about to a breaking point here. Most people are asleep by now that are watching it, but I do want to ask, when you're talking about big PA, Rob, powered versus non-powered speakers.
Oh goodness.
And I'm not talking about PA on a stick. Okay. I know that's the easy way, but I was worried about those. You know, the amp goes out, it's another electronic piece. Your speaker's not working, whatever. But I guess it's the same if you got an amp in a rack. But what's your view on that for a bigger setting? Do you like the powered stuff? Or
I mean, I like the convenience of the powered stuff, and you know, the simplicity of hooking things up does make it nice. I guess it just depends on where you want your budget to go. You know, the one thing that I always kind of worried about, because I've still got a lot of old amplifiers and racks from back in the day, so I don't have a whole lot of powered stuff. You know, if you're dependent on a powered box and your amp goes down or your speaker goes down, well, then that's it for both of those pieces. You know, it can be a little bit of a crapshoot sometimes. You know, stuff's going to break. And if I've got a powered cabinet and the amplifier dies, well, then now the speaker's not working either. Where, you know, the other side of it is if I've got a rack of amps and separate speakers, you know, something could go wrong with one of those, and I don't necessarily lose an entire show or something.
Right, because we bring out two powered.
Well,
right, but if we bring out two powered speakers and the amp goes kaput on one, well, now you've got one speaker to run an entire show on.
Or yeah. I mean,
it's whereas if you got a rack of amps,
I think
you could probably get around.
If this helps you out, and here's something maybe to think about. Not so much on high pack speakers where you'd have just vocals and guitars and whatnot, but on sub cabinets like your low bass cabinets and stuff. I'm not a big fan of the powered ones because you'd be amazed how much energy is inside that box, and an amplifier is sitting inside that box as well. And you've got components that are just getting beat to death from a 18-inch speaker, and that's creating all kinds of pressure in that box. I've seen powered boxes that run subs, and the amplifiers are dead in 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, and then it's like sticking a amp in a kick drum or something.
Pretty much, yeah.
Taking that, pounding every single day.
That's exactly it. Eventually, something's going to give. So, and it might just be a bad solder joint, on a component in the amp, but essentially it stops working and it has to be dealt with. So, I try and shy away from those, but the other stuff, the monitors and that type of thing, it is nice, and we've got a couple of things ourselves.
It's very convenient,
just for convenience sake.
I was actually at a show not too long ago where they were using an XA or something on an iPad, and they lost the mains completely, and they had monitors and could not figure it. Something had to be muted or something happened in the board, but the guy that was running couldn't figure it out. So the next thing you see is they're flipping the wedges over and playing them to the audience,
I've done that before.
and they did a show, but here sits these great subs and these high packs, and there's nothing coming out of them. Yeah. And they're using 3 floor wedges of pretty good size, but it worked. But what a nightmare! And this poor guy's pulling his hair out.
Well, and that's the thing about redundancy. It's possible his crossover died.
Right.
So the mains all of a sudden don't work, and what do you do? We've had moments like that before too.
Oh yeah.
It's like last minute decision, and they'll laugh at me because I'm usually, like Gestapo. Come on, we got to get this figured out. Let's go. We don't have time to waste, So
amazing.
The show must go on, as you know, and usually we get pretty lucky.
Yeah, we've had some snafus. I think we talked about that on one of the other episodes where we had somebody had cross-patched some monitors and everything he was doing, thinking that it was just his monitor, was also basically he was controlling my monitor. So
that's a huge thing that goes on, I think, especially with the new digital platforms. As you see that is somebody's got the wrong monitor patched to the wrong person, and
right.
I see that a lot.
Internally route things.
Yeah, I see that a lot.
Oh yeah. So
which was one of the nice things on like working on an old mixing board or something, is you could see in front of you where everything's at. So if something jumped out as okay, that's not right, it was instantly obvious. Whereas
I miss putting masking tape on a board and writing down what the channels are, man.
I don't miss dirty faders and bad patch cables and all. Exactly. I can't remember what that sounds like.
That's terrible.
It's been such a long time,
Yeah, that was fun. Always.
But
it did pose some other interesting dilemmas when you played. Well, Jeff, what else you got today? Anything? You doing anything? You look like you're ready to go to bed, man.
I could probably take a nap right now, but no, not really doing anything. Just we got 2 shows coming up this weekend. We have a full band and an acoustic gig on Saturday. Yeah. So Friday and Saturday night, Route 88 will be playing. Yeah. So this will be out Friday morning. So guess what? Come to the show.
Check out Route 88's page. Rocks. And find out where they're playing always. And I've got a cool show coming up on Sunday. I'm going to be participating in there's about 17 venues taking part in this, called Autism Rocks 12 out of Cincinnati. And Ken Anderson had on my show on Monday, had the Bengals quarterback, and
the
Ken Anderson Alliance, who is a big part of this, and DJ Dave Kale out of Cincinnati, who's put it on, who has an autistic son, and they joined me on the show as well, and we had a lot of fun with that, and it's going to be a great thing. I'm going to be out at the Monkey Bar in Mainville, for lack of a better place. It's in Mainville, but there's big stuff going on at the Blue Note, the Bell and the Bear, a lot of Cincinnati venues. So that's
Good.
one. If you're out Sunday, try to help with that and participate in it. Lots of auctions at places, and they're raising money. Usually raise about $30,000, but that's normally in one location. And it's not going to be in one location, obviously. This year
so that's going to be in the multiple locations where you
so each one of those locations will have it virtually on their TV systems, coming in with the main party from the Blue Note in Harrison. But then each one will also have live music and raffles and that. And there's an MC at each position. So I'm going to be at the one at the Monkey Bar. So it's going to be fun.
Cool.
Good
stuff. So thanks, guys.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, actually. Yeah, I'm glad to finally get on here. And,
so I can stop hounding him.
And spout off a little bit, as it were.
Well, I'll close my end with saying, Rob, you're a supreme professional, and every time I've ever seen you work, man, it's been magic, and you do great sound, and whoever you're doing sound with sounds great, and your guitar work's not too shabby either. You know, I mean, you do a pretty good job hanging.
Noodly goodness.
I'm doing all right, you know.
Noodly goodness, as Jeffrey.
Noodly goodness, yeah. I had bands come up to me before, and I'm getting ready to play them on stage, and they're looking at me like, "So when's the band start?" I said, "We're getting ready to start right now." No, I mean the band is playing tonight. When are they going to start? Because you're the sound guy. I hear that all the time.
I'm the sound guy.
Get off the stage and let the band get up here and play. It's like, well, yeah, I get it. So. I guess I dabble in both.
Jeff, sign us off, man.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. And if you stuck around for this long, go out and share it, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button.
Support live music.
Absolutely. That's what we need. So share it, everybody. Check us out on Route 88. Check us around on Haul Around Town Radio.
Say that.
Get that right? I know. Yeah. Whew, that's a tongue twister.
I keep my brand right here all day long.
I just keep
that way you can
moving the coffee cup.
You move the cup so everybody sees it. There we go. Thanks, guys. Right, I appreciate you.
Appreciate it, Scott. Thanks.
Thanks, brother. See you, man.
Bye, everybody.
See you soon.